Now to weigh in, two members of Congress, both veterans of the Iraq War, Democrat Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii and Republican Adam Kinzinger from Illinois, who's headed off to National Guard duty next week. I'd like to start with you, Congressman. Do you think the U.S. is doing enough?
Well, look, I want to be very careful to say, it's good that we started doing something, but what we're watching in Iraq and in Syria, frankly, is the worst case scenario for the Middle East. This cancer that's growing, that's consuming all over the place. Back in January, I called for airstrikes against ISIS. In fact, on this show, when they were just about 1,000 or 2,000 people. Today we see them in the tens of thousands, and they're only continuing to metastasize. I think what we've begun doing is very good. But I think we have to get even bigger and realize that the crushing and the pushing back of ISIS, not just in Iraq, but also in Syria, is utmost priority. And allowing the now finds itself in Syria surrounded by both the regime in Syria, al-Nusra, and ISIS has got to be emboldened to be able to fight them back. They need the equipment and the weapons. This is the worst case scenario, and it's something that we have to be involved in stopping with the Iraqi government, with the Peshmerga, and I think we're on the right start, but there's a lot more to do.
Troops on the ground?
No, but, look, at the end of the day, I think the defeating of ISIS is the mission, and so I think everything has to be on the table for that end result. I understand the president doesn't want to put troops on the ground. I don't either. You can't reintroduce 200,000 American troops. But I think things like special forces embedded with the Iraqi military as the Iraqi military regrows its spine to take its country back is going to be essential and important. You never publicly take anything off the table, even if you take it off the table privately, because it just shows the enemy what you're not willing to do. And when you show them what you're not willing to do, it makes your movements all that less effective.
Congresswoman Gabbard, President Obama says he has taken combat troops off the ground, out of the equation. Should he have done that?
Martha, I think it's important as we talk about whether or not there should be troops or exactly what tactical strategy should be used moving forward. We're missing a critical question here, which is what is our mission? What is the United States mission? What are we trying to accomplish here? Adam and I both enlisted, joined the military after 9/11 because we heard our nation's leaders say after that attack that we would go and take out these Islamic extremists wherever they are, that we would fight against those who are waging war against the United States. That stated mission after 9/11 has been lost. And as Steve mentioned earlier, and as we heard from White House officials last week, they said, and I quote, "These airstrikes are not an authorization of a broad-based counterterrorism campaign against ISIS," end of quote. So if our mission is not to take out the Islamic extremists who continue to threaten and wage war against us, then I think we've got a real problem here. If we focus on that mission, which I think we should, then we can look at what are the tactics that we need to take them out. Right now we're seeing in Kurdistan, we need to arm the Kurds with heavy weapons because they are doing the hard work on the ground. They are fighting against ISIS, and we can augment that and support that with our targeted airstrikes.
Congressman Kinzinger, just very, the ISIS threat is really, really growing. How worried are you?
Well, about the situation in general, I'm very worried about what's happening because, look, the reality is they have made it very clear that they want to strike us in the United States of America. They made it clear that they want to strike Europe, and they have the means to do it. So they have the intention and they have the means. The means being, passports and Westerners fighting with ISIS with the ability to get back into the United States or to get back in Europe. I think we have to have a goal of saying we need to crush ISIS. I understand that the American people are war weary. I mean, I hear it a lot. But the reality is after World War II, Harry Truman didn't look at the American people and say, I know you're war weary, so Russia is Europe's problem. He talked about the bigger issue of what American strength means and what it means for security of our land. And he said, we're going to leave troops in Europe. After losing hundreds of thousands of people and having an economy that was based just on, executing this war, we still stuck it out because we knew the dangers. That's where we are today. And I think the president has got to stand up in front of the American people and say, look, you may be war weary, but in 5 or 10 years, we don't want to look back and say, that we missed all the signs, all the signals of the intention of these extremists, and it's definitely there, and it's very serious.
Okay, Congressman, thank you very much, and thank you, Congresswoman Gabbard. Much more from Ferguson, Missouri a bit later, but now let's go to Washington and my colleague Jonathan Karl. John?